Hey there, my friend. I'm so glad you're here. Not every life follows a straight, clear path. Some of the most powerful lives, the most impactful ones, start with detours. They come with resistance, with questions that don't always have answers right away. And if you've ever found yourself wondering, why does my journey feel so different? I want you to know something: you're not lost. You're remembering. Because what if this wasn't random? What if everything that felt like delay or disruption was actually part of a bigger unfolding? Right now, something is shifting. Quietly. Powerfully. The understanding is catching up. And so are the blessings. The kind of breakthroughs you almost gave up praying for. The ones you stopped asking for because the wait was just too long. But before those could arrive, before the doors opened, something else had to give. There were people you couldn't hold on to, places you tried to settle in that just wouldn't let you stay, parts of yourself you had to release, not to lose yourself, but to return to the deepest version of you. Because this life of yours, it wasn't just handed to you. You agreed to it, not because you wanted pain. Not because you deserved hardship. But because your soul saw something in the shape of this path that it recognized. It knew what it would become. And so, long before you ever took your first breath, long before the world taught you who to be, you chose this with God, not to prove something, but to remember something. You said yes to a life that would require more sensitivity, more spiritual strength, more courage to stay awake when it would have been easier to shut down. You didn't ask for comfort. You asked for truth. And truth, it doesn't always come wrapped in peace at first. Sometimes, it tears through illusion. It pulls you out of what's false before it settles you into what's real. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine being given a sealed envelope before you were born. On the outside, it reads, "Open only when ready." You enter the world. You grow up. You play by the rules, try to fit in, follow the script. But something inside always feels off. Like you missed the part where everyone else got their instructions, and you're left ad-libbing your way through. Then one day, something happens. Maybe it's a deep loss, maybe it's a quiet breakdown, maybe it's just that moment when you're done pretending everything's fine, and you feel it, that tug, that pull towards something deeper. A voice inside whispers, "This can't be all there is." And that's when the envelope begins to open, but inside isn't a roadmap or a reward list. It's a reminder. You chose this, and now you're beginning to remember why. It's why your joy sometimes carries a quiet heaviness. It's why you've always felt everything so deeply, like the world cuts you a little sharper than it does everyone else. It's why even the smallest betrayals leave deep wounds. You weren't built for surface-level living. Your life was designed to go beneath all that. To go deeper, to excavate truth where others only skim the top, because this wasn't about chasing titles or fitting into boxes. This was always about depth. You didn't come here to blend in. You came here to break generational patterns, to end cycles, to bring light to places that had lived in shadows for too long. And yes, that's meant walking through life sometimes feeling misunderstood, like you were too much, or too sensitive, or the one who overthinks everything. But that sensitivity, it's only seen as weakness in a world that's afraid of awareness. You, on the other hand, have a kind of awareness that can't be taught. That's why rooms that others find comfortable always felt a little too tight for you. Why you tried to shrink yourself in relationships that still couldn't hold you, because this was never about fitting in. It was about freeing what was buried deep inside of you, and as long as you measure your life by someone else's standards, you'll feel like you're falling behind. But that measuring stick, it wasn't designed for someone like you. Your life wasn't meant to match the crowd. It was meant to guide others out of it. You're not behind. You're not broken, you're not late, you're being aligned with something ancient and sacred that's always been inside of you, just waiting for the right time to awaken. And now, it's awakening. That's why things are shifting. That's why what used to excite you doesn't anymore. Why your soul is reaching for something real, something meaningful, because this next part of your journey, it's not about surviving, it's about embodying what you've carried within you for so long. Quietly, is now ready to take shape in the world around you. And if your path has ever felt strange, Like your timing was always off. Like your milestones came without fanfare, without applause. Remember this, you weren't here to follow the map, you were always here to become the compass. You were never meant to be a copy, you are an original, and someday, your story, the one you're still in the middle of, will light the way for someone else. The truth is, you could have chosen a different life. One with fewer twists, fewer heartbreaks, more ease, more applause. You could have asked for comfort over depth. You could have asked to blend in, to ride the current, to follow the well-lit path, but that's not what your soul signed up for, because the version of you that's awake right now, this self that's beginning to see clearly, wouldn't have been born in comfort. It came through fire. It was formed in silence. It was shaped in the waiting rooms, the nights you couldn't sleep, the moments you felt invisible, and here's what sets you apart. You didn't just experience things, you noticed them, the small details. The shifts in energy. The way someone's silence said more than their words ever could. The things most people overlook. You feel them like thunder in your chest, that kind of awareness. It's not a coincidence. It's not some personality trait, it's part of the assignment, because God didn't choose you for this life because you were already strong, He chose you because you were willing to become strong, without the armor, without pretending. He saw your willingness to see what most people would rather ignore, and that kind of strength. It's rare, it's why, for much of your life, you've felt like you're not quite in sync with the world around you. You don't react the way others do, you don't chase what they chase, even your grief feels different, heavier, deeper, like it's tethered to something far beyond the moment. That's because it is. This isn't just about a single season, or a rough patch, this is about shaping a soul that can hold what others can't. And yes, you've probably asked along the way, why did they leave? Why didn't it work out? Why couldn't I just stay where it felt safe? Those questions are valid. And those moments, they hurt, but they weren't rejections. They were redirects. God wasn't punishing you, He was clearing space, because when you're meant to walk in truth, you can't be weighed down by what only fits your past. And those relationships, those roles, those places, they weren't built to carry the full version of you. Only the edited one. The one that had to shrink, dim, or silence yourself just to keep them. You weren't being pulled away from love, you were being returned to alignment, the kind that doesn't require performance to stay. And this is the part most people never get told. None of this has been random. It's not just some spiritual accident that you felt out of place, out of rhythm, or overwhelmed by a world that often moves too fast and feels too shallow. This life of yours, it's been a setup. A sacred one, the loneliness. The silence. The confusion, the hunger for something you couldn't name. It was all preparation, not for a life you'd just live, but a life you'd lead, because you're not here just to make it through, you're here to shift things, to shift the energy in your family, to shift the cycles in your bloodline, to shift the spiritual atmosphere in rooms where nothing ever changed, until you walked in. That's why it's been hard to explain your journey. Why when people ask what's going on with you, you don't always have the words. Because this path, your process, it wasn't meant to be understood by everyone, it was meant to be felt by those who were watching and waking up because of you. You may not stand on a stage, you may not call yourself a leader, but your life, it teaches. The way you show up, the way you love, the way you navigate silence and uncertainty, that preaches louder than words. That, too, was part of the agreement. So, what now? Now is when things start shifting outward. Now is when what you've known deep down for years begins to take shape around you. The timing that never made sense, it starts to align. The isolation that felt like punishment, it reveals itself as preparation. The slow pace you were forced to walk, it built capacity, room for something far greater than you could have carried before. And all those dreams, the ones you tucked away when life felt too heavy, they're coming back. But this time, you're ready for them. This time, you won't shrink to hold them, you won't compromise just to keep them alive, you won't settle for the version that fits someone else's expectations, because this time, you carry them as you, not the version of you that learned to survive, but the version that's learning to embody, to fully live out what was always inside. You're starting to recognize yourself again, not the edited self, not the performing self, but the original, the one who said yes before the noise, before the loss, before the world tried to redefine you. And no, this isn't the end of your story. This is the part where things begin to catch up, not just the opportunities. Not just the relationships, but the alignment, because when you live with the awareness that you agreed to this life, you stop fighting it like it's something being done to you, you stop asking to be rescued from it, and you start asking to walk it with your eyes open. That's when peace finds you, not as escape, but as presence, not because the path is easy, but because you're finally walking it awake. That's when striving ends, when the need to prove or perform fades, because God no longer feels distant, He feels familiar. You've met Him before, and now, you're meeting Him again, this time with clarity. So when you look at your life, the sharp edges, the slow climbs, the moments that didn't make sense, don't rush to erase them, sit with them, because tucked inside those moments is a memory, not of what went wrong, but of what your spirit always knew was coming. You're not becoming someone new, you're returning to who you were all along.